last speaker of the hour. Not only has he organised the whole conference and been uploading things like mad, moderating every session, here is Shaun Wilden going to also give us a talk. So how fantastic is
it? I'm only doing a talk because Neil made me. I should point out that having spoken yesterday, it's a bit unfair to have 2 slots. But anyway, I'm going to talk very quickly about using your mobile phone with your students. When I'm not doing the IH work there, yeah, thanks Nick. When I'm not doing my IH work, what I spend a lot of time doing is actually training and working with teachers on integrating mobile stuff into the classroom. And over the last few weeks, I've been doing a lot of we've been doing a lot of workshops with teachers in Europe, just using the mobile phone as a stimulus for language practice. And in this case, we're going to look at mobile phone for speaking activities. You'll see on this first slide 2 links. So the first link is my app block. I try and talk about 1 app a week that you could use in teaching, and the other one is a link to the mobile learning group that we talked about yesterday morning. There are lots of people in IH now beginning to talk about mobile learning and integrating it into their lessons. So that link there will take you to the group on Facebook. And after the lunch break, the sessions after lunch are all about IH Cordoba and their experiments with iPads, which I'm really looking forward to. So, as a precursor to that, let's talk about mobile phones. So, if we were in my classroom now, I'd have to ask you to take out your mobile phones. So let's just use the chat board for this. The YouTube link at the bottom is for a video I was going to show, but as we're nearly at lunch, I'm just going to leave it. So take out your mobile phone. Everybody got your mobile phone out? Don't worry, it's always a well-known fact that teachers' mobile phones are not as good as their students, so don't be embarrassed by your mobile phone. And what I want you to do, if you've got your phone out, is just use the chat box to say yes or no. So, can your phone send a text message? Okay. Now remember, if we're in class, when I want to get my students talking and get them start speaking, then we'd be discussing what they could do together, looking at each other's phones. Okay. So everybody can say yes to that, I hope. Can your phone take a photo? Brilliant. No, Carol, your phone can't take a photo. Oh dear. Well, in the case, if you're like a student, if a student who doesn't have a phone to take, doesn't have a phone that can take photos, then what I'm going to talk about could be done with a digital camera or with an ordinary camera as well. So there is a way around things like that. And somebody said that they can't use their phones in the class. Well, there's a way around that as well. And the activities we're going to do outside of class, and then the photos could be emailed to a teacher, so who can use them in class. Can your phone record audio? No, a lot of phones can. If you've got a Nokia, for example, it's probably got a dictation thing in it somewhere. If you look in the settings, if you've got a smarter phone, then you can put apps on it. But a lot of them could do that. Can your phone make notes? Well, can you make notes on your phone? It would be a very clever phone that would make the notes for you, wouldn't it? The answer to that should be yes if you can text message, because you could always write the notes in a text message. Can you connect to the internet? So brilliant, yeah. And could you use apps? Okay, so obviously on the chat board it doesn't work as well as it would in the classroom, but when I want to use mobile phones and I've been using mobile phones with students for a number of years now, it's quite a nice little activity just to get them going. Because people talk about their phones and look at their phones, especially teenagers, it is quite a good way of just getting people using their phones and using the phone productively in the classroom with them. And of course, a lot of people now writing about what you can do with mobile phones. For example, with a text message, Nikki Hockley at IHTOC was talking about how you could do dictation, where you dictate something, and the students use the text message to write the dictation in text. They don't have to send the text, but at least it's just sort of integrating the technology they have with it. If you can record audio, then the students, of course, can listen to themselves and play back things. But I want to concentrate particularly on taking photos and things students could do to personalize language and create speaking resources. So obviously at first, what students do most of the time, and what I think a lot of us with phones on our cameras do, is we take photos. And you see students all over the place, or teenagers on the street, just taking photos of things and then showing it to each other. So of course, taking a photo of your weekend would be a nice little piece of homework. Then Monday morning, or whenever the class is, they could come into class and share their photos and talk about what they were doing with their photos. So there you go. There's a photo I took. People were talking about my chimney early this morning when I moved. There's my garden. So I can describe to people my garden. It's my growing area. They're my crops nicely growing. So the students can come into class on a Monday morning and take with the photo there, and you've got the warmer. What did you do at the weekend? Here's the photo to show it. The students are using their phones, doing something which they're doing naturally, but it's also we're turning it into a speaking activity and using the phone in that way. So once you've started the students taking photos, as you'll know from the last conference, I'm also very interested about how we can take kind of older activities and integrate technology with them. So we could talk about odd one out. So if you've, for example, got 4 students, no, Barry, that's the tidy part of the garden, full stop. We've a lot of work going in there every weekend, apart from when I'm doing a conference. So you could turn like an activity into an odd one out activity. So if you've got let's say 4 students, each with a camera, each have taken a photo. If they put their phones on the desk, then they could try and find which 3 pictures connect and which picture is the odd one out. As Hannah is saying, it's something like the FC or CA speaking. And yeah, I mean, last time I did a conference talk, I talked about using an app to do it. But since then, I've realized that you don't actually need to do it yourself. You could just get the students to put the phones on the table and you create the activity itself. If you do have an app or a website, then you can use a collage maker like that in order to create an odd one out task. This simple odd one out task is which of these photos was not taken this year. They're all from my phone, from my travels. So the students can work together, and as Hannah has quite rightly said, it turns quite naturally into an odd one out task. But don't get waylaid by the collage maker. We can also do it quite happily, just simply using getting the students to take out their phones and putting them on the table. And if we start with that concept, oh, the one I haven't been to this year, by the way, is Vietnam, which I did last year. So there are lots of kind of older ELT or typical ELT activities that some of which we've already seen in this conference, that we can do with the mobile phone as well. So the students the homework could be to say, who am I? So the students go around and take photos which symbolize themselves and then come to class and use the photos to augment a talk about themselves, or change that from who am I to who are we. And the class can all come in with a photo that would best typify the class. And so they're bringing them in, and it's generating the things. The bottom left is near, and bottom left is Vietnam. It's in Hoi An. In order, they go Izmir at the top left, then Liverpool, as Natty said, at IHTOC60. Then at the bottom, it's Hoi An in Vietnam, and then Florence on the right. You could also use the phone to stimulate 20 questions. So I think somebody talked yesterday about things in your pockets that you have. Then you could get the students to take a photo, bring it to class, and the rest of the students have to question or ask questions in order to guess what the photo's about. As Hannah said, there are exam tasks we can do. You could turn the odd one out into an art gallery. So the students put their photos on the table, and they have to choose which one they would print out and put on the wall of an art gallery or on the wall of the classroom. Or they could even do it the other way, and instead of having what's the odd one out, what's the connection? So what would connect all 4 pictures together, or all 5 pictures together? Maybe it's simply the color blue, or maybe they've all got a person in it. But just varying the tasks. But all the tasks come from the student taking the photo themselves. And then the other thing you could do is to get the students in, get 5 phones put in a line, and the students have to create a story starting with the first picture on their phone and going to the 5th one on the right, which is based on the idea of 5-card flicker, which is an active link there. With 5-card flicker generates 5 random pictures in Flickr to help students create a story. So you see where I'm going with this. Quick tasks that your students can do, integrating the phone into the classroom. We can even use it to practice a language point. So these are some teachers I was working with in Serbia a couple of weeks ago, and we were taking pictures of phrasal verbs. So these teachers, in this instance, I asked the teachers to use their camera, and they had to contextualize a phrasal verb. And so that phrasal verb is what. In fact, just to save time, I'll put both on the window. Yeah, take 4, look at, and there's the other one there, take off. And this is actually an idea that I got from some Italian teachers when I met them recently in Italy, and they're doing this with their students, and they're doing wonderful stuff on Facebook with it. But it's a wonderful way, you know, rather than perhaps doing a typical gap fill exercise with a piece of language, we can use the cameras on the phones in order for them to create the language themselves. As I say, in this case, it's phrasal verbs. We could use it, for example, take 2 photos, and we could talk about present perfect and what has changed, those kind of things. Nick, in his talk earlier this morning, was mentioning Evernote, and then on the discussion board, we had the app Sketch, which also works on the computer. And if you do have a way of annotating photos, then of course you can actually write, the students can write on these photos and create the context as well. So, you know, the photos provide the context, the camera becomes a useful tool in the classroom or out of the classroom in order to benefit language learning. And of course, the other thing to consider is what else it would do. So you could get students doing, I was trying to check you there, Nick. You can set tasks like take photos of the English around you. If you live in an English-speaking country like me, that's perhaps not the best thing. But if you live in most of your high streets, I'm sure the shops have their names in English, or you see English signs. So students can use their phones to take the English around them and bring them into class. Or we can have a visual dictionary, as we said, as I said with the earlier one. If the students are writing on photos, then they can create a dictionary themselves. And when you've got word lists in a course book, you can ask the students to go and find photos of the words in order, you know, to change those words lists into a creative, useful thing. And finally, a digital scavenger hunt, which I think was perhaps mentioned by Sandy a little bit in one of those blog talks, where you give the students something to find. So, for example, with my students, I'd give them a letter for the week, say the letter B, and over the week they have to find photos, take things that are in English or in the letter B. So lots of things you can do with the camera, lots of tasks you can do. And since students are going to be using their phones and their cameras daily anyway, it's kind of a way of integrating things into that. Don't forget the video, of course. The video on a lot of smartphones is a wonderful recording tool. Although if students are going to record themselves or you're going to record them, don't forget that there's lots of levels of permission you might need to do. So you could use the camera to video role plays, create extra things that go with dictations, and so on and so forth. So that was using the camera on itself. I got obviously earlier on in this hour we had Sonia talking about comics. If you wanted to actually take the photos a step further, you could use an app or website called Comic Life, and that will help the students turn the photos into a comic story. And while I'm just talking about apps, then one other app that we could have is this one, if you've got a smartphone, which would turn your photos into a postcard. And to tie in with a talk last night, getting away from just talking about the photo aloud, if we want to take the photo and get the students recording it, then Natty last night mentioned a wonderful app and website called Spreaker. So I think this is a great way of combining audio and combining the pictures that the students are taking. So there we go. In my 10 minutes, I just wanted to show you the tools that you could do with a phone, with pictures. I've left some tips there or some ideas for what you could do with audio as well. I think that the mobile phone is generally banned by a lot of schools, but actually what we're doing is overlooking a very, very useful tool that we could use for the students and bring the, just personalize the language and let the students bring stuff to class, which makes our life easier and also creates great resources. And that's my 10 minutes up. Hope you enjoyed it. If you go to my blog, you'll find lots of lesson plans on those and lots of ideas on it a little bit more. And that's me taking you to lunch. So it's lunchtime now. We are now going to break for an hour and 20 minutes. And then we changed the link of the classroom, remember, for the afternoon sessions. So in the afternoon, we'll be on a new link, which you'll find on the program. I'll just see if I can find the program again. But you'll find it on the program, and then you can come back to the room. We start again on my time in an hour and 20 minutes. That's 3 o'clock, but it's 2 o'clock GMT. And I'm very much looking forward to the afternoon sessions, which are going to start talking about how schools are using their iPads. We hope you've enjoyed this morning. And remember that everything will go onto the blog. I hope you're keeping your energy up. We've already been through, what's that, 10 speakers this morning, 11 speakers this morning, taking us to 40 already.